Thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited to be sharing beehiiv with you. All right, so what we have on store for today, our agenda is I will start with covering the settings and making sure that all of the settings are set up properly so that when you get ready to send your first email, all of like the name of the newsletter, the name of your organization, everything's just set up properly. Next, we'll get into the actual editor. We'll go through how to set up the design of your newsletter, how to work with the editor. And then we'll move to actually sending the newsletter, making sure that the settings for each of your sends is going to the right audience, being published to email or published to web properly. And then finally, once we get there, that'll take us to about halfway through. Once we finish that, we will basically last go through the growth features that are available through the platform. And that will bring us to about an hour and a half. Usually we hit right there at that time. If you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. Tony is my eyes in the sky. He's a producer. You can't see him. You can't hear him. Like God, he is always watching. And he will be pretending to be me in the chat, responding to questions as they come. But he'll also maybe pose questions to me as I'm going through. So if I pause for a second and start to ponder, know that's Tony is talking to me and I am relaying the message, much like a beehiiv prophet. I'm relaying the message from my producer. There's a lot of ways we can use this religious metaphor today. Just to give you guys a little teaser, essentially, this right here is the existing kind of web experience. So this is one of our 3 existing templates, but it's very inflexible comparatively. You have your header up here. You can customize the look and feel, but can't really customize the layout very much. There's 3 different layouts that we have built in. And so we recognize that many folks want to really take their design and really make a website that holds their newsletter and holds their content that looks completely unique. A lot of folks are running media brands, are trying to do stuff with their newsletter that doesn't necessarily fit within the 3 designs that we had provided. And so we bought a company that was a web builder company, and their team rebuilt the entire product within the beehiiv platforms. Now you can have as many different pages as you want, custom pages, very different look and feel around all of these different pages, customized to the footer, separate archive that's separate from your homepage. Really beautiful template. This is just one of, I think, a couple dozen that we're going to be launching with in March, but gives you a great deal of flexibility on how you can visualize your newsletter. And all of this will be, in terms of these feeds, are going to be completely dynamic. So you can say, this is not just going to be static where you have to update this every time you publish. This will be like a feed of your most recent newsletters, for example, or in this case, like ones that you tag as trending and so forth. So very cool what we'll be able to do very soon. And that's just a little teaser of the new website builder. If I click into one of these posts, I'm actually not going to click on this one. This was the first one I published. I got better. We'll click on this one. This is an example of the newsletter, one of the posts that we'll show as we get into the experience, but essentially just showcasing kind of everything we can do with the beehiiv editor. Obviously, we have the normal stuff like a header, headline, subtitle, social share, bylines, estimated reading time. Those are pretty normal things. When we get into this is going to be the free version. So I have a paid subscription that I run through this publication. And this is going to be the message that's shown to anonymous users as well as free users that encourages them to sign up to become a premium user. If they are a premium user, this shows just the actual widget to listen to the article. So just one way that you can build in ways to transition readers from free to premium if you are running a paid subscription. Customization of headlines, links. Didn't mean to click that. Obviously, body text, images, this very normal stuff. Columns for visualizing content in different ways. More of these columns, more text. It's nice and styled to give you a little bit of visual texture. We got content breaks that separate the text from other parts. One of the really cool features we'll cover towards the end is our polls feature, where you can ask questions of your audience and collect feedback. So if I hit yes, it's going to ask me to log in. But once I log in to record my answer, it'll show me what people are thinking about this. We encourage users to log in so that these polls are valid and that somebody can't just answer a bunch of times and basically make your poll look wacky. Another poll, this one's a trivia one. So when somebody answers this, it's going to show them the right answer, not just like the votes that each option received. Fully functioning social media embeds. So we have embeds across a bunch of the major platforms: Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, Threads, any of these social media networks that actually have an API for embeds we have. And of course, if you click these buttons, it'll take you to the Instagram post. We have ways that you can backlink and insert links within your article for SEO as well as just navigation purposes. Third poll, and then of course, just like most other platforms, you'd see a comment section, ways to encourage your users to keep reading, keeping them on site as they navigate through the site. and so forth. So just an example of one of the more basic posts that is very easy to create with beehiiv. I show you this now so that as we go through the process, you have a point of reference for what we will be covering. All right. This is more or less what your dashboard will look like. I'm actually going to pull this date range back so we can see a little bit more data. But if this isn't what it looks like, it's probably just because there might be less data or just different data. But easy dashboard to see who your active subscribers are, like the number, the count, open rate, click-through rate, so basic metrics. You have this great graph that you can download and export, share on social media. You can see how beehiiv is contributing to your growth. So we have the methods that like are beehiiv specific features here. And then of course, anything else that's outside of like the beehiiv ecosystem, like the website itself and any social traffic or whatever is listed below. You have opportunities, ad opportunities that are available in your account and so forth. If we click through these tabs, you can go to audience, you can view details about how you're growing and a little bit more of a detailed view than the top level. Engagement, this is going to show you your recent posts and the content associated, the metrics associated with them. And lastly, your monetization dashboard, you'll be able to see the money you've made from boosts, paid subscriptions, and soon your ad earnings will be listed here as well. So really quick overview. From here, we're going to go into the settings. And so from the first kind of thing to cover is that the way that the beehiiv accounts are set up is that you have an umbrella that is the workspace, and then workspaces can hold multiple publications. And so what we refer to as publications are the newsletter / like blog / the content that you're actually publishing. And we call them publications because they don't have to be a newsletter. It can be a traditional blog. It can be a traditional newsletter. It can be a hybrid where you publish to both the web and to users' emails. But the term publication really covers both of those cases. If we go to the overview, you can set the name of the business or entity or just leave the default name. You can set a global default for the address. This is going to show up at the bottom of the emails required by law to have an address for CAN spam compliance purposes. And then you can see all of your publications here. In this case, I have my workspace has all of these various publications. If you're coming to beehiiv and you're thinking, maybe I'll start multiple newsletters, you might just start with one, but we also have the capability for you to start a whole ecosystem of newsletters if you decide. Next up is the team. We have very advanced like collaboration capabilities within the editor as well as in other parts of the app. And if you have a team that you're working with or you want to bring on a collaborator or maybe you have a ghostwriter or a freelancer, you can add them very easily. And we have a bunch of permissions so you can give as granular, as restrictive permissions as you want. To say you only want somebody to be able to work at the publication level, you can select the publication. And you can say, okay, I only want them to be able to write posts, but they can't access anything else. You can do that. If you say you have a business partner who should be able to access everything, you can set them to a workspace level admin and everything in between. You just add into the email, it'll send them an email invite. When it's time to upgrade your plan, this is where you're going to come. You're going to go to this billing section. Yours will look a little bit different. This is just because it's part of our admin accounts, but you'll have a button that says upgrade here, and you'll be able to select the appropriate plan that you want to be a part of. Other than that, it'll show your last payment, your next payment, the payment date, and any billing info that you may want to update. Lastly, if you're a developer or you may be working with a developer and you want to integrate beehiiv across other tools, you can use our API to basically access and pull data in from beehiiv. You can do that by generating an API key and using the publication ID right here. We also integrate with over 9,000, I think the count is, 9,000 different tools across the web without any code, using tools like Zapier or Make. And if you're a developer, we integrate with any tool that has either webhook or capability. Moving from the workspace settings, the first step we're going to do is going to be looking at our general info. Oh, and I usually say this at the beginning. If you have not yet, I think as of this week, everybody who signed up will be on a free trial. If for some reason you're joining us and you joined us before this week and you're not yet on a free trial, we just made that switch where everybody is put on a free trial when they sign up. If you are not on a free trial, I highly recommend you clicking the button. No credit card required. You just get it. And then at the end of it, you can make any changes you want, but there's no obligation, no commitment required. That'll help though as we go through this presentation. It's very helpful. It's going to be very hands-on. So I'm going to be going through all these screens. It's very much an intensive workshop. It's not so much like a high level, this is beehiiv. It's more like once you're in beehiiv, this is how you get started. And these are like where all of these different features live. But in that way, it can be helpful if you're following along to also be on the paid plan or the trial plan. We have the publication name, publication description. So these are just very basic. These are going to be defaults on your website and also are helpful in terms of like SEO if somebody shares your URL to your newsletter. This will show up on social media, publication logo, and default thumbnails. When we saw those images on the homepage where you have an article and you have the picture that shows up, that's called a thumbnail. This is going to be the default if you don't select one. If you don't even select a default thumbnail, it's just like a gray screen with a beehiiv logo. Definitely change that. It makes your publication look so much better. From here, we got publication tags. These help your newsletter get discovered when we're basically querying publications to offer ad opportunities, as well as when it's what powers part of our recommendations engine, which we'll get into in a bit. But if you want your newsletter to be discoverable, if you want us to basically be able to send you some offers and whatnot, definitely select up to 3 publication tags. If you want to publish your newsletter in a separate language, we have options for these 7 languages. Your time zone is going to be set by default wherever you access your account and you set it up. And then if you want to change the default button text, you can do so right here. This is just going to be the subscribe button that shows up across the site. From here, perhaps you're running a newsletter that's a little bit more sensitive. Could be could be investor updates. It could be like a PTA or like a private organization. You can actually make it so that your publication is private by checking this box. This is just going to make it so when people come to your site, the web portion of the site, it's going to just tell them that the publication is private and that you're not able to view it. If you keep that unchecked, there's nothing they're going to be able to do about it. If you check this box, users will be given the option to apply to get access. And so in that case, they'd be able to submit their email, and then on the subscriber view, which we'll cover in a while, you can click the approve or deny button. Lastly, if you upgrade to our max plan, you'll have the ability to toggle on or off the private branding, which is like the powered by beehiiv logo at the bottom. If you're a marketer, you'll know what UTM parameters are. By default, we set some. We also give you the opportunity to either turn those off by default or change them. These are just ways for you to track your links or have your links tracked by other people. There's not really a reason to turn them off. The only thing that you might do is if you have UTM parameters that your company operates with, you may want to customize them. Moving to email settings, we have your email sending settings. These are where it gets a little bit more rubber hits the road. This will be the sender domain. This is what's going to show up in the inbox to your subscribers. The reply to address, if somebody hits the reply button, this is the address they're going to reply to. So you want to change that to something that you'll have access to, that you will receive. By default, it's going to be the email that you signed up to your beehiiv account with. Footer details, you may want to change the specific footer details of a particular publication. You'll do that here. It's very similar to the footer details that you set at the workspace level, but of course you may want to have those set at a default level. How many newsletters someone writes on free plan? Great. Yeah, that might be a question, Nebula. I think maybe asking how many newsletters can someone write on a free plan? The answer to that would be 1, but you can have up to 10 on our paid plans. Beyond 10 would be a custom deal where you could reach out to our support team. We can support up to an unlimited number. Usually 10 gets people pretty far. Moving down, we have a couple emails that are set up automatically. So by default, every user gets access to a welcome email, which is going to be an autoresponder that subscribers receive when they sign up. I don't have this turned on here because there's also the capability to do autoresponders or welcome series through the automations feature, which is how I have them set up here. But if you did want to set up your welcome email, if you're planning to stay on the free plan, you can do so by configuring the welcome email by clicking here. Double opt-in is a very popular choice for people growing email lists if you want to really index around quality. It's going to make it so that when somebody subscribes to your newsletter, they're going to then receive an email that asks them to click a button to confirm their subscription. It's a best practice around deliverability, and it helps make sure that your list is clean and that the only people that you're sending emails to are people who have received your initial opt-in email and said, yes, I want to receive the newsletter. All right. So double opt-ins, you can turn that on if you want. Some people turn it off because it can inhibit growth a little bit because maybe 10, 20% of your users won't click that subscription confirmation. So it's a trade-off. Higher quality, better deliverability versus like faster lists. If you're coming from another platform, I don't know if there's anybody here who was coming from another platform, but if you are, and you're coming from one of these 4 platforms, we actually have an automated content import system. So you would just follow the instructions on screen. We can pull all of your content in from your previous tool with just a couple clicks. Again, similarly, if you have subscribers on an existing list and you want to bring them in, you can do so by clicking this new subscriber import and following the instructions on the screen. It's fairly self-explanatory, and this is where you'll do it. Typically, there's only one time. It doesn't happen often if you're migrating. It happens at the beginning. By default, you'll actually only see a 10 here. We require a very simple automated verification of your identity in order to upgrade from a limit of 10 to 10,000. So that covers like 99% of people. If you are importing more than 10,000 subscribers, you'll just click this request form and give a little bit more information about your background and where you got your subscribers from and so forth. And our support team will upgrade your account to whatever you need it to be. But it's a way for us to prevent abuse of the platform and improve. If you ever, for whatever reason, want to leave beehiiv, all of the data that is on the platform is completely portable. So you can take it with you. This includes your subscriber data, all of it, your content, the posts that you publish. What's missing in this screen is your purchase history data and the receipts and stuff like that. And that's because we don't actually ever take control of that. You own all of your customer data at all times. If you create a public premium subscription, we link to your Stripe account. We don't create a Stripe account for you. And then if you ever try to leave, it's tied to us and then you can't do it. You own all of your data all the time and it's completely accessible, totally portable, totally open. Next up is our custom domain settings. This is one of the most important sections and where we get the most questions. It's very common that people want to create or attach a custom domain to their publication. So by default, you'll sign up. It's something like website.beehiiv.com. If you want to create a custom domain, in this case, I've set up vacationvoyeur.com. You can do so here. The instructions, we've spent a lot of time really refining the instructions through 3 years plus of feedback on how to do this. And so I'm not going to go super deep into it because the instructions are very robust. But the big punchline here is that when you get to the point of actually updating the DNS records or like the kind of the technical stuff that's going to make the domain work, we actually within the last 6 months have added a tool that just with a couple clicks does that for you automatically. So the hardest part was in the past copy and pasting over the records from beehiiv into your host platform. You don't have to do that anymore. In this case, you just follow the instructions on the screen and we set up the rest. Mir, yes, you can attach your custom domain with a free plan. Totally free, no commitment, no payment or anything. Again, if you're a developer, you may be interested in webhooks. In this case, there's two different ways that developers can interact with the beehiiv platform. One is through the API, which I covered before. The other is with webhooks. And it basically depends on like the direction that the information is going. If you are reaching into beehiiv and retrieving data, that's the API. If you want beehiiv to take data and push it somewhere else, that's webhooks. And so the kind of common use case would be if you want to reach into beehiiv and return a list of your subscribers, you're going to do that with the API. If you want beehiiv to tell an external tool every time a subscriber comes through, you're going to use webhooks for that. Both webhooks and the API are compatible with Zapier and Make and have custom integrations with both of those tools. And of course, if you're a developer, you'll have a little bit more insight and knowledge on how to work with those. As I mentioned, you control your Stripe accounts. As you set up your Stripe accounts with our various features, then you'll come in here and you can manage your Stripe account connections in this interface. Lastly, there's two ways that we work with RSS feeds. One is every account you can turn on your RSS feed so that subscribers can just get your content through whichever RSS reader that they prefer. The other actually is a newer feature where if you're on our Max plan, you can actually attach an RSS feed to your beehiiv account. And then within the editor, within our RSS widget, you can actually populate external content into your beehiiv newsletter. So this is really popular. We built this specifically for news organizations that are on our platform, like Time Magazine, like Boston Globe, and some others, where they're publishing news and they're publishing stories and headlines and whatnot on another platform, but they really want that content to be the headlines and the links and everything to be in a feed within the newsletter. So they can just have, here's the top 5 stories that are for a particular category. And so it's a little bit more of an advanced functionality, but if you require that functionality, we have it. Cool. So Mir, yeah. So connect Gumroad with beehiiv. Yes. So yeah, absolutely. You can definitely add the people who sign up and buy stuff through Gumroad to your newsletter through either a Make or a Zapier connection, Gumroad to beehiiv. And in fact, in Q2, we launched the website. The first thing we're building is the ability to sell digital products through your beehiiv site. In the future, you'll be able to replace that entire integration completely and just sell directly through beehiiv. We're very excited. Aren't we, Tony? Tony's shaking his head. He's not, but I know he is in spirit. Now he is. He wasn't expecting it. You'll just have to take my word for it and trust me. Let's see. All right. So we've moved on from settings. If you guys have any questions, I know there's been some coming through the chat. We have one question. When is the Gumroad replacement expected to be integrated? I can't give a firm commitment on that date. I believe right now it's on the roadmap for Q2. We move really quickly. We launch features every 2 weeks with really strict regularity. But I would say, let's see, just signed up, haven't started building. Should I wait to build the site until the March launch of the new builder? So it depends, Adam. Right now, the builder is part of our max plan. And then when we launch, it'll be part of our scale plan. So if you're planning on upgrading to a paid plan to access that customization, then it may be worth it to upgrade to max and start building. I will say that it's in beta right now, so there are some things around stability in terms of bugs that we're still catching and knocking out. I would say it's certainly worth it to start publishing. There's no reason why you can't start publishing. The current technology is very stable and very good. But in terms of like really spending a ton of time to customize and build out your site, it might be worth it if you don't want to, if it's important to you to wait until that is launched, so that you just don't have to do the same work twice. Ryan, this is amazing. However, I'm old. Is there a webinar that will walk me through everything like a 10-year-old? So my goal is for that to be what this is. And if you have specific questions, there is not a question that's too dumb or too, I should say too dumb. It's like too basic. There's no question that is too below us to answer. So please, Ryan, drop anything that you have here our way. These are being recorded, and I have several others that I've done. I've been doing these weekly since the new year. So like we have a bunch of these on our website. I think Tony will be nice enough to drop the archive, but you'll be able to basically go back and you can follow and pause it and everything like that if there's anything that I might be moving too quickly for. What would be the easiest way to send a different variation of the daily newsletter to a free subscriber versus a paid subscriber? I'm glad you asked because we're going to cover that. And we have a bunch of functionality that covers that exact use case. Is the website builder or newsletter post more like a blog? If I want to start a blog, which one am I going to start with? So the post, as we get into it, let's just jump into it. If I just jump into this, and this looks a little bit funky because it's like a test post, but right now we're looking at like the preview for email. But essentially, we've made our platform is able to equally work and be compatible as a blog or newsletter sending platform. And so just jumping ahead a little bit, when you go to publish a post, if you wanted it to just be on the web and live as just a blog post, you would just turn off and uncheck these audiences for email. And now it's publishing only to the web. And then if alternatively, if you only wanted to send an email, you would check these to send to all of your email recipients. In the case of publishing to the web, it's going to show up on your website, of course. And so it can be both. It's what we find is, and like what our kind of moment was, that people who are publishing newsletters are really not that different from people who are publishing blogs. It's really just the medium. Newsletter posts go to people's emails. Blog posts exist on the web and are static and exist into perpetuity. But in terms of what people are trying to achieve, it's usually pretty much the same thing. Now, that can be very different. If you just want to publish a ton of content and have it exist for SEO and discoverability reasons, like that's like a very traditional blog, you can totally do that. But often, even if you are running a blog, you'll want to periodically send emails to your audience that can contain links to your blog posts and whatnot. And so that is to say, our platform is really just a digital publishing platform. We happen to be very strong in email, and that's where we started. And we're a newsletter publishing platform in that way. But almost all newsletter platforms that you see, whether it's the Skim or Morning Brew or Axios or any of these, they all have a web component, because if you're not publishing to the web, then you're only reaching your existing subscribers. You're not actually able to share that content with potential subscribers or future subscribers. And so if you do want to just publish a blog, you can totally do that. You would just always uncheck the email recipients, and then you're going to be just fine. And you can publish a blog, and it's going to be great. Our content, our platform is extraordinarily well optimized for SEO. I come from an agency background where I worked professionally doing SEO, and so I bring that perspective to our dev team, and we've built a very, very platform for discoverability. And yeah, and if you just want to send an email, you can also do that as well. So from here, getting back on track a little bit, we're into the editor now. I want to cover the basics. So we have your title or your subject line. You can obviously change and separate the two of those. We'll get into the settings in a bit, but it can be your title, subtitle, your authors. You can add, take them away, whatever. If you want to add a custom thumbnail, you can do so here. Say we want to make this the thumbnail, we can do that. And then we can add content tags. Content tags help your users discover different content. So if I go to the homepage here, your content tags help just organize for discoverability. So there you go. So we got these things covered. The next step would be to actually start drafting content. So this post is already filled with content. And you'll notice that it's not really styled at all. It's just, you can see this black background. It's just black and white. We don't really see the styling of the headline or the text here. it definitely doesn't look like that preview that we saw a second ago. Or if we look at the preview now, we can look at the email preview. It's a different font. It doesn't have any of the styling. We look at the mobile version. We look at the, I turned off web, so we got the version. From here now, we can see what it's going to look like on the web. It's going to look a bit different. We have this like pink background in parts of it. And you don't see any of that in the actual editor. And that's because what we've done is a bit different than every other platform. We noticed that when we use these tools for drafting emails, one of the things that took a lot of time was that as we would write them, most of the other platforms have the styling done at the same time as when you're writing. And so as you write, you're constantly having to adjust like padding and the way things are showing up and the different fonts. And you write some content and then the next section has different, you create another section and you have to update the font there and everything. And it's just like a nightmare. It takes so long. And so what we did was we bifurcated those two processes. We bifurcated the drafting from the actual design. And so in this case, we call this the design system. So you come in here and you set all the details for what the design should look like, a traditional design system. And these kind of are going to be rules that are respected when the newsletter gets published, but that you don't have to worry about as you're drafting. And so you set the look and feel like one time, and there's a bunch of different settings here that you can use to customize all of these different parts. You set that up one time, and then you never have to touch the look and feel again. From there, you can just come into the editor and you just write. And so users tend to appreciate that, and that it saves them a bunch of time. It saves them a bunch of, not heartache, but struggle in terms of having to go back and fix everything. And again, when you look at the web, on desktop, this is what it's going to look like. You don't have to worry about the spacing or the colors or the background or like the fonts or anything like that. That's all taken care of. And so it's really quick when you get to writing. So that's that. If you ever do want to take specific content and make specific edits, you can do so with this menu that pops up when you highlight stuff. So you can make individual pieces, bold, italic, underlined, strike through. Highlight's a fun feature. I love this one actually, like a traditional set that color. So now you can see this is going to be highlighted. It makes it just a little bit more visually striking. You can also obviously make superscript, make subscript if you want to do like more scientific writing or you have a reason to do subscript. And then there's a bunch of other stuff here, but these are all pretty self-explanatory. You can change that justification stuff. But if for some reason you do need to break the design system and you need to set something to be like an alternative font or a size or a color or something like that, you can do so with this little settings menu here. But this should be like the last step. Most of your design should be done in that design suite. The last thing before we go to the actual features of the editor, one thing, or actually I guess this is the first feature we want to cover. If you create a new line, you'll see the type / to browse options. If you hit the / you're going to see this big widget palette show up. And so this is how you can access all of the different tools with kind of one click that we have to offer. So these are all just different ways to stylize your content. If anybody has any questions about any of these specifically, please drop them in the chat and I'll go into particulars, but you have the different stylizations, you have different headings. I talked about the embeds earlier. You can do all of these different embeds. And then under premium, these are all going to be the widgets that come with our premium plan. So we talked about the RSS, content to RSS within your editor. That's how you deploy that. If you have an advertisement that you are wanting to deploy through our ad network, you can do so with one click. Our recommendations and polls and all that stuff can be deployed through this widget palette. Now, I had somebody ask me how you could create a separate variation for free users and your paid users. And so I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to show you, oh no, this is not the right one. I'm going to show you how I actually do that within my newsletter. It's a little bit of an advanced thing, but once you see how it works, you can play around with it. Again, if this is a little bit too advanced, don't worry about it. The main thing is just to get started publishing and to take it at whatever pace you feel comfortable with. It just happens that in my case, I wanted to really stretch the tool to its limits and basically really push it. So if I come here and I go to the preview, this is the post I showed you at the beginning of the call. So on desktop for web, for free users, this is what showed up. We saw this and I said, yeah, if you're a paid subscriber, you see something else. And so if I do this and I switch this to premium, you'll see that it actually changes completely what the user sees. And this is how this was done using different visibility settings based on the status of a subscriber. And so this can really be done infinitely. And so in this case, I actually have different versions for desktop versus email. So on the web, I can actually pull in a HTML snippet from 11 Labs, and that's what's showing up here. But for email, JavaScript doesn't render an email, so I have to choose a different approach. So in this case, I used an image that's linked out to the actual audio. But in either case, I was able to do so using our visibility settings. And so in this case, we have the widget for listening to the audio for premium users. This is the widget for listening to audio for free users. And this is for, let's see what the visibility settings are here. So if we go to visibility, this is for email users, and this is for the paid subscribers because it's a lot of people to click. So from this visibility menu, you can select whether you want to show on a website, show an email, show to free, or show to paid. And so that's what I've done here. This is for the email version. If I click here, this is going to be for paid users for the free version. Paid users for the website because it's HTML. This is going to be email, but for free subscribers. And this should be, also anonymous users. Okay, it looks like I have two kind of for the same one. There's probably a good reason for that. I just don't remember at the moment. And then this is going to be for the free subscribers on the web. And so essentially you can do this with as much content as you'd like. I also do this, I believe, with ad placements typically, where I'm going to hide the ad widget if somebody's a premium subscriber. But you could do this with blocks of content. You can do this with really anything in the editor. You can use these visibility settings here to not just show content to particular audiences. What's coming in the future is the ability to use segments, which we'll cover soon, but segments to show specific content. The other thing you can do here is change the actual visual settings. So if you want to create spacing on either side or above or below, or you want to change the border, make it dotted, make it bold, make it thicker, make it thinner, you can do so here. The one thing that's a pro tip, again, getting really granular, if you click either of these icons, it actually lets you change the settings on specific sides. And so it really is like this granularity of you have the newsletter builder or the newsletter design system, and then you come in here and you can use these visibility settings and visual settings to really make things very granular and exactly how you like it. There's really very few, and recently there haven't really been any designs that I've seen that you can't replicate with our beehiiv platform without any code at all. For anything that you do need code for, if it's an external widget, we do have these HTML snippets that you can render HTML within, but typically there's really not anything that our editor can't do. And you might say, okay, it's a lot of work to create these newsletters. I create them once, it's a lot of work. Then what? Once you create the newsletter, you can actually use this. You can use the save button to save it as a template. You might spend a little bit of time getting your template set up the first time, but once you have all of that work done and you have all the styling done the way that you look, so it's pixel perfect, you don't actually ever have to do that work again. You can just save that as a template. And then the next time you go to start publishing, you would, instead of starting writing from a blank draft, you would use a template, and then you have all of that work pre-saved. And so that's one of the ways that users can save a boatload of time. So not only is your design visual settings saved and set once, you then have the actual content templated so that every time you come in to write a new post, you're just adding the new content. Question from Shane, any recommendation to add LinkedIn without looking chunky with a link? Yeah, LinkedIn does not have embeds, which is why we don't support them. There's no API for showing LinkedIn posts. The two approaches that I would recommend, one, we do have a widget for default links. The other could be like if you have an image that you create or like a screenshot, you could take that screenshot, put it into the email or put it into the post or newsletter, we'll call it a post, put it into the post and then send it out like that. So if a user clicks it to like it or whatever, they would be linked out to your LinkedIn post. Okay. Domain purchase proski.in. So you would have to use, so Yash, you'd have to use of that. So you could do like newsletter.in. The way our platform works, it doesn't work as like a folder extension. So you can't do proski.in/newsletter. So we now have a post. I know I moved through that quickly. So again, keep dropping questions. This will be recorded. You can come back and view this in the future. But we now have a post that has been drafted. We want to now move to the actual settings around sending it. So I gave you a preview of some of those settings. We already covered publishing to different audiences. What I didn't cover here was if, for example, you have a message that should only go to paid subscribers, you can uncheck some of these. So in this case, these settings checked. The email is only going to be sent to your paid subscribers because we've checked paid subscribers. And for web, it's actually going to be, it's going to show up on your website and anybody will be able to see like the headline and that the post exists. But if anybody who's not a paid subscriber clicks to try to view it, they're actually not going to be able to view it. They're just going to be, they're going to say this post, you have to be a paid subscriber to read, and it's going to prompt them to upgrade. Alternatively, if, for example, you have some segments built, you have sublists or parts of your list that you may want to either receive or not receive the newsletter, you can choose those segments from these menus to include or likewise exclude. If there are any questions about that, please drop them in the chat. I'm going to move forward. So we have both web and email settings turned on. So we'll move to the email specific settings. If you want to do like an A/B test of your subject line, can be a very effective way to improve deliverability. You can do so here. This is going to be your default title. And if you have the A/B test turned off, this is what it looks like. Just title, subject line. If you want to add a competitor or challenger variant, you can do so here. The way this works is that it's going to send the first variation to the sample size you select. And the test is going to run for this amount of time. At the conclusion of the test, whichever winning variant the system chooses is going to be then sent to the rest of your list, so the other 90%. We also have some built-in statistical validation, so it will tell you whether there is a statistically valid, we send it to whichever one had the better result on a gross basis. We have some options here where you can customize the way that your newsletter is going to look in the inbox. So if I go to the preview and look at email, you can see here we have these social media icons and these like and comment icons. If, for example, you want to turn those off, you would just pop these off right here, and now those are going to disappear. Moving to web settings, here's where you can set the URL slug. So this is just going to be the rest of the URL. If you haven't set a thumbnail, we give you another chance to set the thumbnail. You can turn on whether you want advanced email capture to show up on this post. So a pop-up is going to show up halfway down the page once every 7 days. If you have pop-up turned on, and if you have the gate turned on, nobody's going to be able to read the post without first giving you their email. If you're on our Max plan, you'll have this ability to add a audio transcription powered by 11 Labs. You can choose a voice. Even if you're crazy and want to use my voice, you can. I don't recommend it, but it's there. And from there, at the top of the web version of your newsletter, there'll be an option to have users listen to the audio newsletter. If you're into SEO and you want to be discovered organically by search engines, we have these great SEO settings to allow you to customize your metadata, not just for search engines, but also customizing the way that your links are going to show up if shared on social networks, and not just one setting for all social networks. You have particular settings for Facebook and LinkedIn, and then we also have the particular settings for Twitter or X as well. So you can really get as granular as you want with the way that your links are going to show up, which can help with your growth strategy and how people perceive your newsletter when they discover it. From here, we're going to get to the review stage. Before we review, we highly recommend using these settings over here to either check out a draft version or send a test email to yourself or anybody else that you may be relevant. You can select that and then hit send test, and you're good to go there. Otherwise, if you've done that, you can hit schedule. You'll be given the choice to schedule for a later time, or you can publish right away. And if I hit publish now, that's good. I know I've moved through that really quickly. I know there's some questions that Tony's been handling in the chat. At this point, just to recap what we've covered so far, we've covered the settings. You have an account where you've set up the settings. You have all of the proper things accounted for there. We've drafted our first post, and we've gone through the settings for getting that email ready to send. We've selected the audiences, we've selected the subject lines and so forth. And we've even, at this point, actually hit the send button. We've gotten to that first stage of activation, and now it's time to really dig into the other features of the platform. So underneath this audience tab, we have a series of buttons. So under subscribers, you can search, you can filter by different types, you can filter by different tiers of the paid plan. We're going to show you a list of the subscribers here with their email status, any tags that have been applied, any tiers, when they subscribed, and how they came into your list. I'll get into the specifics of subscribers in a minute, but I do want to cover, if you want to collect custom data about your users, you can create what we call custom fields. So in this case, I collect first name, gender, dream destination, and phone number. If you have characteristics about groups of subscribers that you want to keep track of, you can do so with tags. So in this case, I would do something like, I don't know, it could be anything. It could be serial traveler, group traveler. So if I had for some reason wanted to track people who travel in groups versus people who travel solo, I might have a tag called group travel, and then I could apply this to specific users, and then I could make a segment to say, hey, make me a segment of all users who are group travelers versus solo travel. Preference center, this is most useful. It's a little bit more of an advanced feature I don't really cover in detail, but if you, for example, have a newsletter that you're sending daily and you want to give people the option to pull back their frequency to weekly, and you want an easy way to manage that, that's what preference centers are. It allows users to manage those different settings for themselves. It can be a way to prevent churn. Going back here, though, to our subscribers, if I click on this one, it's going to take me to the subscriber view. This is for me. It's going to give the subscribe date, premium status, the stats around delivery. You see this overview with these different types of features. This is going to give me a feed of all of the different interactions that users have taken with my newsletter. So whether it's posts or automations, polls, referrals, or any of these other topics. I have the ability to search as well as filter by the events and can see a very detailed feed around how somebody has interacted with my publication. Otherwise, over here, we can see the acquisition details. This is going to be more if you're into marketing, you can see where and how they subscribed, any custom fields. So these are the answers I gave. So no phone number, Maldives is my dream destination, gender, and then first name. You can use that in the editor to customize your newsletters. I don't have any tags set, but if I wanted to set this is like group travel, good. And then this is going to show me the automation history that this user has engaged in. Somebody asked about segments a second ago. Segments are going to be ways that you can break out your list into sublists. So in this case, I wanted to create a list. I grew a little bit using Instagram ads, and I wanted to create a list of my users who signed up from Instagram. So on this configure section, I just said, show me all of the users whose UTM medium, which is like the medium, the UTM tag that I applied is UTM medium is CPC, which is just the taxonomy I use for paid. And then the source is Instagram. And so in that case, it basically it gives me this whole list of those users as well as their aggregate performance. In this case, it shows me the open rate, click-through rate, unsubscribe rate, et cetera, of those users that came from, in this case, Instagram. But this tool is incredibly flexible. Literally any interaction or any characteristic about your user, we surface in that tool. And so really the mind is the limit on what you can do with segmentation. I mentioned automations at the beginning of the call, and this is a great way to basically set up welcome series or any other kinds of like journeys that you may want to automate. In this case, if we look at the workflow for a welcome series, the trigger might be when a user signed up. And then we can set with this builder pretty like basically infinitely flexible journeys that users should take. So in this case, when they sign up, they're going to immediately be sent an email. Then there's going to be a 3-day time delay. They're going to be sent another email, another time delay, and then we're going to split on true or false. If they've opened the email, do something. If they haven't opened any emails, do something else. If they've upgraded, do something. If they haven't upgraded. But the way that these work, they're really infinitely flexible. It really comes down to your imagination with these journeys that you might want to create for your users. If I don't spend a lot of time on this, if it seems a little bit vague, it's just because there are so many different use cases that it's really very difficult actually to limit that world of possibility down to something it's really as wide as you might want it to be. I mentioned polls at the beginning of the conversation. We see the satisfaction tool or poll, the is it worth it poll, and one of the trivia polls. So if I look at one of these, I can see the status, what type it is, how many times it's appeared, how many responses I've received, and when the last response came in. So let's look at this. In all of my posts, in these 4 that I've published, I asked the question, is the experience worth the price tag? And you can see that on the whole, 3 out of the 5 votes have said yes, 2 have said maybe. So this is interesting. What I could do is take this and click share results. I can actually take this to, if I wanted to go to X, because I copied it, if I paste it here, it actually gives me this like Wordle type of response and allows me to create really actually bespoke first party custom social content, which is really cool. Other than that, you can use polls in a lot of creative ways. You can ask users what kind of content they want to read about. You can ask them things like the satisfaction poll to see how are they enjoying what you're publishing. Is there places you can improve? There's really a ton of different ways, and the benefits are myriad. It's one of my favorite tools, and I think one of the most underrated ones, because it helps improve your deliverability when these inboxes see that you're clicking on the results. It helps engagement or users feel engaged with your newsletter, which is going to keep them coming back. It gives you feedback and content that you can then publish independently that's unique to your own publication. It can give you feedback to figure out what to write about, what to double down on, how to do all this stuff. So really quite powerful. If you're not using a poll in your posts, my personal opinion is that you're leaving money on the table. Cool. So real quick, before I move to that next feature, I'm just looking in the tab. There's a bunch of different questions here. HH, for a brand new newsletter, do you need workflow or does that email get sent to all when you publish? So with you need to set up the either welcome email or on the trial, you can set up an automation. If you don't, then nothing gets sent to users when they first sign up. When you are a new newsletter, when you publish your post, if you publish it to email, anybody who's on your email list is going to receive the email. If I didn't answer the question or if it's something that's more specific, happy to answer it. Nebula said, could I confirm how many newsletters one can write on Beehiiv's free plan? Yep. So Nebula, the answer is, I believe 1 on the free plan, and then on our entry level paid plan scale, it's up to 10. And then can I integrate Beehiiv newsletter to my WordPress site? Absolutely. There's a couple different plugins that people have built that allow you to pull content into your WordPress site so you can publish on Beehiiv and it gets populated as a post in Word. You can also do something custom if you have the development skills. You can also integrate collecting subscribers through WordPress, sending them to your beehiiv account if you want to just only use beehiiv for the newsletter. You don't want any content published. But we have lots of users who in the past have used Word as their front end of their site. And that's why we were building this web builder tool, so that users can really replace any kind of third-party web builder with a fully custom experience. I see. So on my primary page, there's a list of newsletters that have gone out. I have members that are writing to contribute to the site by writing blogs for exposure. I'm trying to separate those on a different page, or would I have to have a separate external link? So when people write on your newsletter, you can actually, it depends on what you want. So there's a setting, actually, I didn't cover this in the web settings here. You can actually hide the post from the feed. So it depends on what the goal is. If people are writing and you want those blog posts on your site, you wouldn't want to hide them, because then it's going to hide it from the site. It's only accessible via link. If you could also, like, by default, any post that is posted to the web is going to show up on your archive. There is not really a differentiation of like only show newsletters or only show blog posts. It's basically everything is there. What you can do though is essentially have either through content tags, tag content as like one or the other so that users can filter. So that could be one solution where you have like newsletter, content tag, tagging content as a newsletter or as a blog post, so that a user could come in here and say, okay, if they click this, imagine this said like newsletters, it would show only newsletters. And if they click this one, if this said blogs, it would only show blog posts. The other solution is if you wanted to, you can have them be as separate publication. Like you can have, if you have guest contributors that you are building a blog around, you don't necessarily, I don't know what your goal is or how you're designed, but it could always be a second publication if you're worried about having the same content altogether. And I will say with the new web builder, that functionality, that limitation no longer exists. With the new web builder, when you have your homepage and when you have your archive page, we actually have a bunch more flexibility in terms of filtering which posts show up. So like with the new web builder, if you wanted to have your homepage be specific content and then you wanted the blog to live on a separate page where you click like a button that literally says blog, you'd be able to do that. And that would be done like you have your homepage where you might have specific content here. And imagine this didn't say archive, this said blog. You could have another page and this is only going to be the blog post that you want that from those publishers. So it's definitely kind of workaround. There's a limitation that we are actively creating solutions for flexibility. All right, cool. Back in the saddle, we were at automations polls. Okay, so I mentioned surveys. Surveys are a way for you to collect user information. It's our kind of version of forms. These could be standalone where you just send them out and post them on social media. We actually also have functionality where you can set these polls to automatically show up when users either unsubscribe or subscribe. I have this poll set up to automatically show up when somebody subscribes. But yeah, if we hop in here, it's probably going to take a second to load because it always does when I'm on these calls. Wow, it actually is super fast. The opposite. The first time I've ever warned people it's going to take forever and it was immediate. This is our builder. So you basically can set up like what's your first name and have the field. You set up which custom field the data should be saved to. Same thing with these other questions. And then if I go to here, I can basically grab that URL and see what it's going to look like. Simple. You collect that information, get saved there. So I'll run through in a few minutes like what a subscribe flow looks like within my publications, just to show all these different features working together. But yeah, give me a second to get there. We have this subscribe form. So again, if the guy who is using or the person who is integrating with WordPress, if you want, we basically have this ability to set, you have these basically different subscribe forms that you just embed on your third-party website that are going to filter and drop your subscribers directly into your beehiiv account, no API required. You can access those here. You just take this code and you drop it in like a custom code widget on whichever tool you're using. Easy peasy, and you're good to go. So that covers the audience features in a very high level. We have documentation for all of that. We have tutorials for all of those. And if there's any questions, I can come back to all of those. I'm just moving quickly because we have 18 minutes left. So next up, referral program. This is one of our most famous features. Essentially a great way to incentivize your subscribers to share your newsletter with other people. In this case, I've set up a ladder of 1 referral, 3 referrals, 10 referrals, 20 referrals. So 1 referral will get users a year of premium access. 3 referrals will get them a sticker. 10 will get them a hat, and 20 gets them a tote bag. We make it incredibly simple to set up these rewards. You just go in here, you set up the reward, the milestone email, and configure those settings. And then we give you all these tools, dashboards, leaderboard, and whatnot to basically view performance and manage the fulfillment and whatnot of the referral program. Super, super powerful. This was like the growth hack that Morning Brew used to blow up and was pioneered by our CEO, Tyler Denk at Morning. We mentioned earlier recommendations and the importance of adding your category tags to your newsletter. This is one way in which those category tags help with discoverability. So if I click this add recommendations thing, I can basically search any of those tags and it's going to show this list of publications that share those tags. So in this case, I typed in travel, so it's going to give me top travel newsletters that I could choose to recommend. Recommendations are basically organic recommendations. They're ways that you can, are organic ways that you can recommend your newsletter to somebody else. So I think this is probably a good time to do it. If I go back to this newsletter, I'm just going to show you what a typical subscribe flow might look like. So if I go through here and I type in j.com and I try to subscribe, first thing I'm going to get is going to be this widget that pops up that is asking me if I want to subscribe to any of these other related newsletters. And down here, so up top is where it says sponsored. These are going to be what we call boosts, which I'll share more about in a minute. Below are going to be the organic recommendations. And so essentially what you're doing as a publisher is when somebody subscribes and you use recommendations or boosts, you're basically telling your subscribers, hey, I think you might find one of these other newsletters really useful. If they subscribe to one of these up top, the ones that are sponsored, you'll get paid. I think these are 80 cents, $1, whatever. And then the ones below, these are organic. So there's no compensation for these down below. They're just purely organic. And the ones up top, the sponsored ones, these are accessible through our Boosts marketplace. We have a whole marketplace where you can basically view the opportunities and apply and basically get connected with other people willing to pay for growth. The organic ones are more if you find somebody who's also on beehiiv that maybe has a complementary topic and you want to basically share some growth, you can organically set those up. As a subscriber, if I check any of these, once I hit next, it's going to subscribe me to them with one click. I'm just going to hit maybe later. This is now, the next step is going to show me the welcome survey. So I'll say EJ and then multiple. I answered that. The next is going to give me to the upgrade page. Then this is going to give me an upsell to try to get me on one of those premium plans. I'll say maybe later. I also run this other newsletter, so it's going to be the opportunity to subscribe to another kind of sister publication. If I hit maybe later, it's going to take me back to the homepage. So that's our subscribe flow functionality. And you can see where these recommendations show up. So in this case, I've recommended or referred 92 subscribers to Air Traveler Club, 74 to Zillow Gone Wild. Neither one of them is recommending me, but Own the Watch is recommending me, and they've sent me 4 subscribers organic. Speaking of recommendations and partnerships, magic links are really powerful for collaborating with folks that are not on beehiiv. We have 14 or 16 platforms here that we integrate with. So in this case, if you had a counterpart who's on MailerLite that wants to run a promotion with you, you could just give them this link and then they include that in their newsletter. Anybody who clicks that link is going to be automatically subscribed to your newsletter. It's going to give them a heads up and say, hey, thanks for subscribing. But it's a really, really low friction way to run collaborations external to beehiiv. We already mentioned boosts for growth. So this is the interface where if you want to pay for growth, you can create a new offer. You just set the CPA that you're willing to pay. What's really cool here is that unlike something like Facebook or Google or any of these paid platforms, you put in the amount that you want to pay and that's all you pay. And you only pay for subscribers that are actually engaged in opening and engaging with your newsletters. This is if you went to Facebook and said, I have a budget of $100 and I only want to pay $1 per subscriber. And if there was any subscribers that like unsubscribed or weren't engaged, Facebook gave you your money back. That's literally what we do. If somebody subscribes through recommendations and they end up not opening and engaging with emails, or they were, for whatever reason, not adding to that experience, we will literally refund you that money. And it's also different than Facebook. There's no guarantee of a specific price point. So if you put $100 in, you might get a dollar per subscriber. You also might pay $10 per subscriber. And it really just depends on how good you are at media buying and advertising. But there's no such limitations here. You put $2.50 in, that's all you're going to pay. You put $1 in, that's all you're going to pay per active user. So really great way to grow your newsletter. I'll skip the monetize stuff because I usually handle that last. But next to last, we have our 3D analytics reporting. So if I just pull this back to, this is going to show, we have a bunch of different reports here that go really in depth on your growth. So in terms of subscribers, this is going to show growth across overview, specific performance, open rate, click-through rate, unsubscribe rate, upgrade rate, performance by source. So like where your growth is coming from. We have by far the most in-depth suite of analytics tools here between what I've just shown, as well as our cohort analysis. You can go deeper with beehiiv in terms of analytics and understanding your growth than any other platform out there. We also have similar reporting for your posts, so the content that you're publishing, so it's capturing everything, and then clicks as well. So there's that. Let's see, one sec. We got 10 minutes left, so we're getting there. The last things I'll cover are monetization. So these are going to be things that are not accessible on the trial if you're on the trial, but we love to cover so that people can see them. So first here is, this is the monetized side of Boost. So you can see here, I've run campaigns for all of these different advertisers, and I've made some money. I've made, I think, $100 or whatever, running these for a short time. But essentially, if you want to view the marketplace, we have this Boost marketplace where you'll see these newsletters, the real money that they're offering to pay for subscribers. And so if I wanted to come in here and basically filter by, let's see, is category, let's do travel, and language is English, and publication, let's do like small or medium, because like they're bigger than me. And last posted within the last 14 days, I want active newsletters. And I primarily target the United States. So let's say United States. So I've added a bunch of different features here. Oh, I should tell them that is confusing. That is very confusing. That looks like I'm trying to select. We made it easy. So you can see from all of those 5 filters, we still have a bunch of options here. It's like we have tons and tons of people in this marketplace, and this is real money that they're willing to pay. So 80 cents a subscriber, $1.12, $1.51. I can sort by highest payout first, etc. So in this case, if I wanted to get connected with this person willing to pay, I'd hit apply. I'd describe why I think my audience is a good fit for them and why we should partner, and submit that application. If they think that it's a good fit and it's a good way for them to spend money, they'll accept it, and then their Boost offer will start showing up in my the widget after subscription. We talk about ads. I have a couple different offers here from different companies. So right now I have 5. If I wanted to basically see maybe this CBD company, CBD has a bad rap, but like 1440, Mood, these are like really well-known companies. Like we do Netflix, HubSpot, like all kinds of AAA companies. Not that there's anything wrong with CBD. This looks like a great brand. We definitely vet our vendors as well. But say I want to do this running one, basically I have a bunch of different options that my ad might look like within my publication. I can select which one, so I have some flexibility on how that shows up. And then I just select the date that I want to run it. In this case, Rundot wants to, that's when I got it. So I can basically put in the dates when I might want to run it and then hit confirm. I'm going to get reminders I've committed to sending that post with an ad. And then when it goes out, I get paid, in this case, $1.60 for every click that users click on that ad. So one way to monetize. The last way, the third way, is through our premium subscription. So in this case, I have a premium subscription that is sold for $1 a month or $2 a month or $20 a year. This product or feature of our product competes with companies like Memberful or Patreon or Gumroad in terms of subscription management. You can select monthly, yearly. I don't know if we have more granular than that quite yet, but tons of different options around like how you structure your plan. So pay what you want, bronze, silver, gold tier, tons of different flexibility with how your premium or paid subscription program is structured. You can also make some offers. So if you want to incentivize people to try before they buy, you can do 7-day trials. You can do, if you have people that you want to comp for, you can do that. And within your publication, you can actually create these paywalls where if you have premium content, you can actually, one of the widgets that we covered before it's a paywall widget where maybe you have some preview content and then you put the paywall widget. Everything above that will be visible to everyone. And then anything below the paywall widget will be blocked off to only be visible by premium users. So it's a great way to give like people a preview before they go. We integrate with Apple Pay. So if somebody comes with a Safari or Apple device, you can actually get them to buy right then and there with Apple Pay. Lots of really cool stuff here. And that really covers all 3 of those kind of core monetization tools. We actually had a webinar yesterday around how to do creative monetization, but there's other ways to monetize. You can do things like job boards. You can do things like affiliate links. There's even the person we were talking to yesterday, Michael Kaufman, his whole thing was like creative monetization strategies. So when that one's public, check that one out for some other ways to monetize. But lots of ways you can make some money. That really covers the features. We're coming right up on time. We got 5 minutes left. So I'm going to spend that last 5 minutes talking through any questions that have popped up. Before I take those questions, I will say if this was useful and there maybe leaves you asking, you have some more questions that have been generated by this. Two solutions. One, we have our knowledge base at beehiiv.com/support. We have over 400 videos and tutorials on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@beehiiv. And then the third thing is we have a very vibrant, active, paid Slack community called the Hive. This is for paying users once you upgrade, but it's 3,500 plus, so 3,500 plus, I think it's 3,560 something active paying subscribers to Beehiiv. They're publishing day in and day out. I think there's like literally like right now at this moment, like I checked the other day and like cleared all my messages. There's hundreds of messages waiting. It's very active. It's very knowledge dense. And so if you have questions, it's one of the fastest ways to get those answered. Lastly, while you're on the trial, you will have access to our full live support team. So if you have any questions or you need help getting started, our team is fully ready to get you the help that you need. We have a couple folks who are dedicated specifically to like new users, and we'll get back to you really quickly. So with those last things out of the way, I will jump into some questions. Is the subscribe flow built in or do we need to create one? So good question. Subscribe flow is actually if you go into website builder and then settings, there are some settings here that could be important depending on like your level of sophistication. So pixels, if you have like advertising pixels, you can deploy them here without any kind of messing with any kind of code. Just some general broad SEO settings for the web presence. Social links, so these are where you can add your social links that'll show up on your website. Global email capture settings for the website. So if you'll recall, there's like email capture settings at the post level. If you want every post to be gated, you can set that here and customize the way that those gates and pop-ups look like. And then next we come to the subscribe flow. So this is where it's called sign up flow, sorry. This is where you're going to set up that sign up flow. So you don't have to include all parts. Like you could turn off multi-pub if you don't want it, or if you don't have multiple pubs. If you don't want to do your upsell right when people subscribe, you can turn that off and customize that way. There's also some other settings around how you want your boosts to show up. In this case, I have it set to be the highest earning ones are going to show up at the top. If you want to turn on and off your comments, you can do so here. So like by default, newest comments are going to show up first. You can modify those settings. Notifications, if you're getting too many emails about notifications about your publication, you can change that here. One of the really cool things that's unique about Beehiiv is we actually give every publisher their own mobile app. So if a user comes to your website on mobile, once they subscribe, it'll actually give them the option to say, hey, do you want to save this to your home screen? And so without having to go to any of the app stores, it actually saves your publication directly to their home screen. And when they do that, they'll start to get push notifications every time you publish a new post to the web, as well as if they comment and somebody else comments back. And so it's great for community building, but it really gives you a very professional view. And unlike some other platforms where they push your subscribers to their app, we basically give you the app experience so that you're interacting directly with your subscribers and we're never getting in between you and your users. Sign up link is just going to be your general website URL with /subscribe. So if I come here and I hit this, if I go to the subscribe button here, it's just going to be this right here. So that's how you can find it, and you can share that anywhere. With that said, again, please reach out with any questions. My email is ej@beehiiv.com. I should have covered this in the beginning. I'm the head of growth, first employee. I've been around. I can answer any questions you guys have or get you the right answers. I got to do better. Maybe less espresso lesson and more introduction. But that was something fun we did today, and that was very unique. And hopefully you guys enjoyed it, or at least didn't hate it. Thank you so much for joining us today. Again, please, if you have any more questions, I know somebody was asking, said, hey, is there somewhere we can get more in depth or kind of more questions answered? Please reach out to me. I'm happy to answer them. Our support team is there to help. I hope this was really helpful in just getting a lay of the land, a true orientation to the platform. But again, we've dropped those resources. We'll include all those links in the call notes. And then if you want to get a jump on that, we have previous versions of the Jumpstart sessions that we've posted. And I know Tony's shared those links several times. With that being said, thank you so much for your time. You're why we do this. You're why we're so excited to wake up every day and build this company. We wouldn't be here without customers like you guys and users like you trying us out. Our commitment to you is to work as hard as we possibly can every single day to deliver the best product on the market for our users. And you can hold us to that commitment. We are unwavering in our confidence and our search in that way. You will never find another team of folks in this industry that will work harder for you than we will. With that being said, thank you so much. I hope you guys have a good, safe, fun weekend. And yeah, look forward to connecting on socials, and can't wait to see what you build.